Hey, now it's the Rob from 106.1 KISS FM here with my broadcast colleague.
Hey, it's Eric Cornish from 99.5 WKDQ. We're here in the ESPN Evansville studios, and we want to thank them for letting us use their studios. And you can actually find this on their website as well now. And if you have, thank you for finding us here.
We love being up on the ESPN 105.3 website, and this is an example of how we are growing.
Yes, exactly. Well, I got to tell you, the enhancement talent today, we're going to kind of go in a different direction than we have in the past. And what's odd about this is I had already planned on today doing, one of my segments, The Voice of Reason, about TNA, because we don't talk about TNA very, very often.
And now they are the biggest news story in wrestling as of today. I saw it this morning. I don't know when you saw it.
Yeah, this morning as well. And the story is that Spike TV has decided to not renew their contract after October when it expires. So this is big, big news, especially for the entire wrestling world, not just TNA. So my Voice of Reason segment today changed a little bit from what it was going to be. It was going to be about TNA and about how they were growing and getting better, but unfortunately, too little, too late. So here we go. Eric Cornish, Voice of Reason, to tell you why TNA did not succeed. Let me give you a little bit of history first. Going back to the beginning of TNA, 2002, they came out. They wanted to be an alternative. WCW was gone. ECW was gone. So it was a different direction, and they needed to be an alternative to WWE.
I was watching day one. I believe June 19th, 2002.
Yes, and a very good pay-per-view to kick off. Had its issues, but was there for TNA. They were different. They were weekly pay-per-views, so you had to want to tune in, and they had plenty of people tuning in. They were live. They were from one location, and that was in Nashville, Tennessee. Wasn't the biggest building in the world, but they didn't have to travel, and they could bring everybody in. They had great surprises when they first started. That's why they were such a great show that people wanted to buy the pay-per-view and see what surprise they were going to see. Whether it was former stars like Lex Luger, like the Road Warriors, whether it was, it doesn't matter. Scott Hall was there. Their first champion was Ken Shamrock. So they had solid talent, that had been places in the past. And they also had brand new talent that nobody had ever heard of that was amazing. So they were doing well. Then Vince Russo came in. I got to tell you, a lot of people are saying Vince Russo ruined TNA, and I don't agree.
I don't agree with that either.
Because Vince Russo actually had it going in a different direction. At the time when WWE was trying to scale back the attitude, he was pushing forward with the attitude. And that's what you needed, because you needed something different, and TNA had that. And then from there, they get a TV deal. They go to Spike TV. They've got the six-sided ring. Again, everything looked different. And then things started to go wrong because they began relying on, again, WWE guys. But not just good WWE guys like Christian and Kurt Angle and Booker T, but some reject WWE guys that WWE just didn't care about anymore, and they wanted them just because they were WWE guys. Case in point, this past week on Impact, you had two guys debut, and it was Ezekiel Jackson and Gene Snitsky.
Didn't even know that.
Again, they are Dixie Carter's henchmen. Not that they're bad talents, but why such a big role for guys that never really got over in WWE? So here's where I think that they went wrong. At that point, Jeff Jarrett was having some issues. See, Jeff Jarrett and his father, Jerry Jarrett, were very heavily involved at the beginning.
It's true.
Well, then you had Dixie Carter and the Carter family, the money behind this.
Is that Panda money?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And so here's where it went wrong. And this is where the Voice of Reason comes in. Because when Jeff Jarrett had his issues with Kurt Angle and Karen Angle, well, they pushed him out. Decided that personal issue was too much for him to actually still be running the company. Then they flirt with some other people who could run the company. Names like Paul Heyman and Jim Ross. But they wouldn't give them full control. The Carters still had to have their control in things. Those guys would not take the job without full control. So they're gone. So who comes in? Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. Now, this could have been a coup for TNA. For any other wrestling company, it might have been. To get Hulk Hogan, the biggest name in wrestling history, to come into their company. But instead of making them look credible, it made Hulk Hogan look desperate. And bringing in his friends, putting himself on camera constantly, getting rid of some of their biggest talent of all time.
Can I give you the best example?
Go for it.
Bubba the Love Sponge.
Bubba the Love Sponge.
What a terrible, just it gave me
Horrible
douche
idea.
chills
Yeah.
watching him on TV.
Horrible idea, and they chased away the one thing that really made them stand out, and that was how good their knockouts division was, and they had Awesome Kong, who was this just amazing female talent.
Mm-hmm.
He got into it with her, chased her off, and she went to the WWE. The Nasty Boys, well past their prime, they were back immediately.
To say the least, past the prime.
And that on their debut show with Hulk Hogan coming on there, and you bring back the Nasty Boys and Bubba the Love Sponge, all of a sudden people immediately turned off and said, "I see what's going on here. This isn't going to be good for TNA. This is going to be Hogan's parade of buddies." So that happens, and it's allowed to go on for 4 years. And then Hogan just walks back into WWE, and he's a bigger star than he's ever been with their machine. So I'm here to tell you right now, the voice of reason says the reason that you are losing your TV deal, despite what you've done good in the last 4 weeks or so, is Dixie Carter and the Carter family. You did not let go of the reins. You insisted on being a part of this product. And you, the Carter family, are the only reason to blame for TNA going downhill. Leave it to the wrestling folks, and you would have had a better run. These last 4 weeks, I was impressed. Manhattan Center, original home of Raw.
I used to live there.
I tell you what, I loved it. I love the shows. I love the show that's coming up, even though I haven't seen it. I know it was taped weeks ago. The Hardy Boys against the Wolves. That's going to be an amazing show. The Great Muta was on the show last week. Despite how good you're doing, you're not going to be on Spike TV anymore. And TNA, the voice of reason, says the Carter family is to blame.
Well, I have a few things to say about this. My thoughts aren't as deep as yours. TNA was not as close to my heart as it was to yours. I don't think there was a good 3 years, honestly. I would say from like 07 to 10, where I was watching TNA faithfully. But I never felt like the product was all that great. I thought the best example of TNA was their stars that they made themselves. Guys like AJ Styles, Beer Money, people like Christopher Daniels, who were having great matches night in and night out. The Motor City Machine Guns. These were guys you could totally count on. And they were the reason I was tuning in. I went over because guys like Kurt Angle were there. That's why I sampled your product. So I came for Kurt, but I stuck around for the Machine Guns or whatever the case was. You never really hooked me, though. I always felt like I was watching a minor league product. Whether rightly or wrongly, that's the way I felt. I'm a bit surprised Spike canceled it because they seem like Spike's big thing is their TV for guys, guys.
Right.
Wrestling fits that mold. UFC fits that mold. I don't know how expensive the show was for Spike to carry. Their ratings were, they weren't great. They weren't awful either.
But they get a solid 1.
But
which
on a channel like Spike is pretty good.
Not what they wanted, but still, that's good.
Yeah, so I don't exactly know. I'm curious to see what kind of impact this has, for lack of a better term, on the wrestling industry. If TNA can't find a cable outlet in the United States, their product is going to die.
Yeah.
You need to be on TV, and I don't know if they're going to be able to. If you remember back in like 04, 05 when they were searching desperately for TV, they did not have an easy time doing it.
No.
Now that they have a track record, it might be a little easier, but I wouldn't say it's a home run slam dunk. It's not. And then you'd also need to look at it from this point of view. If in fact TNA does fold, which is quite possible, I wouldn't say it's happening immediately, but it's quite possible. Well, what does that do to professional wrestling in the United States? Because it changes things a lot drastically.
Yeah, I mean, guys need a place to work, and if you don't have WWE, you've just got the independents, and TNA's was as close to it as you could get, but at least it was on TV.
It was the closest thing to a competitor on a national or global level that the WWE, A, has had since WCW, and B, probably will have likely in the future of all of mankind. I don't see anyone challenging WWE the way TNA did. If it goes away, whether you like TNA or not, that's bad for the business, in my opinion. Having a monopoly in the wrestling business, and you can kind of see what happens. There was a couple of months where WWE ran really unopposed to any sort of... It's not good for anybody, especially the consumer, like us and you wanting this. So not having a place for someone like Kurt Angle to go can be a bad thing. Now, for me personally, if it winds up with Kurt coming back to WWE, I'm totally cool with this. But in the meantime, Hopefully they'll find some sort of place to go where I will not watch them again, but I like to know that they're there.
Well, see, and the biggest thing with TNA is that, they got rid of the stars that people cared about, their homegrown stars that people cared about, and then they realized they made a mistake, so they went with more homegrown stars, like Chris Sabin and Eric Young, putting the belts on those. Those are the wrong guys. Nothing against them having the title, but they just kind of hot-shotted onto them with
Sure.
no build-up, and, instead of giving it to people like AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, who are now gone. So, that's another big issue.
Well, and not only that, you have their big stars, the WWE people, making way more than they probably should have been,
Right.
and more than that makes guys like AJ Styles want to leave because they can't make a living in TNA anymore. So now they're out doing their own thing. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean, someone like Eric Young, a great talent to have on hand, kind of out of place in the main event or even as the champion, I think.
Yeah, I just don't get it to where, we've talked about it before. That's like the equivalent of Santino all of a sudden just being given the title.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
he does great work. People like him. He gets over. But are you just going to drop the title onto Santino one day and not, be criticized for it?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So let me ask you, Eric, I have a question. In a word, what do you think of the six-sided ring?
I don't know that I could put it in a word, but one, it was different, and that was okay with me.
Okay.
It made things look different. Two, I think it may have been a stretch.
I think it looked Bush League. I think it looked amateur. Like when I was a kid, we used to wrestle around on the trampoline in the backyard and tape it, and we called it the TWF. It was the Trampoline Wrestling Federation. But it's like, you look at it, it's like it should be a ring. It should take place between a square, I think.
Yeah, I mean, good for them for trying to be different, and that's okay. But like I said, it may have been a stretch. Of course, they, other people picked up on it. For example, over here at the Coliseum, they got a six-sided ring that
They
they
do?
use. Yeah, they use a six-sided ring all the time. So
I don't think that's a good move.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it was a fad. I don't think they should have brought it back, and certainly shouldn't have asked the fans about it.
Yeah, that was stupid.
So ask the boys first.
Yeah,
what I mean?
and I know what they think. They didn't want it at all.
And one more thing about Dixie Carter too, not living up to the hype. There's very few. Of course, we talk about WWE pay-per-views, and very rarely do we give a really poor review. I mean, there's some that they were okay, but they always deliver on some aspect. There's always at least one or two feuds that really pay off.
Sure.
The problem with TNA is the payoff. Whether it was Dixie Carter tweeting, and crying wolf, saying this is going to change the face of the building, of the
Earth-shattering.
business. How many times can she say that with it not really paying off? How many times can you claim that Bound for Glory is your WrestleMania and then it not pay off? WrestleMania pays off every time. Every time. So don't claim that Bound for Glory is your WrestleMania if you're not going to treat it that way. This year, it's going to be in Japan. Take it away from the U.S. and maybe people might actually care.
Ironically, the one time you have an earth-shattering announcement is the one time you don't do anything about it. The one time you say nothing about your earth-shattering announcement is getting your TV canceled.
Yes, exactly.
And one last thing, Eric,
Yes.
where does TNA go from here? Do they find another cable channel to put them on? Do they close up shop? Do they become just a regional touring act? What happens to TNA wrestling from today, July 28th forward?
Well,
Or I guess October or
Right.
November forward.
Well, let's just basically go to what I was saying in the voice of reason. The Carter family is the reason they're in the position they are. The Carter family will also have a decision to make, and I truly believe if they don't get a TV deal within a couple months, the Carter family will say, we're going to take our money and go elsewhere because we weren't wrestling people to begin with. We don't need to be wrestling people anymore.
Immediately, in the coming days, weeks, and months, will we see a mass exodus of talent?
I think you will see fewer and fewer talent used on TV, and more contracts will just go away.
And when will Kurt Angle's next WWE match be?
I think we will see Kurt Angle in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
I'll say WrestleMania.
Okay.
That would be awesome if he was in the Rumble, though.
All right.
All right, so let's sign off from the ESPN studios. I think we went long enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so, but that's all right. Hey, if you got your thoughts on TNA, did you
Yeah.
like it? Did you hate it? Where do you think they went wrong? Let us know.
We may not have many more opportunities to talk about TNA, so we wanted to make sure that we did it today.
That's true. Thank you for joining us for the Enhancement Talent. I'm Eric.
I'm Batman.
See ya.